Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture of literature. I'm Adrian Fort.
And I'm Dalton Gentry.
And we're here for part 2 of a 7-part series?
74-part series at this point. You keep them going like you did last week. We're never going to end this.
Maybe, yeah.
My God.
7-part series as we journey through The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Suzanne Collins. This is my first experience with Collins. Is this the only book you've ever read by Suzanne Collins?
Yes. I've read the second one of this series. But this was the first. I don't know if she's published anything else. I genuinely don't.
I don't either.
I could be wrong, but I don't know.
I think she had a series after this, actually. But it did not do as well, obviously.
You don't say. You don't say.
But I think that she had a series after, I think, because I remember when the movies were coming out. Because these movies were made basically alongside the books, right? Like, they were very snap.
Yeah, this was post-Harry Potter world. We're like, oh, money.
Yeah.
Hello. So this was chapters 6 through 9, the culmination of part 1 of the book here, right before we move into part 2, the games. During this particular chapter here, we are in District 1. We've ended the cavalcade of combatants, basically. And training. Cavalcade of combatants.
Look at you go.
Training has began. We have Katniss and Peeta. They're thrown into the world of District 1. They're having their fine dining moments. They're meeting the people. They're doing all the niceties that they're supposed to do before they're slaughtered. During a training section, Katniss earns an 11 out of 12 on the rating system, 12 being the highest you can get, for her bow skills because she decided to shoot her arrow directly at the people who were judging her, which I figured was a very Adrian Fort moment. You enjoyed it. It's good to know gambling's still alive, though. Like, even the poorest of districts, it's good to know that we have a ranking system. Anyway. After that, in the interview portion, Katniss kind of comes into her own, becomes comfortable being herself. It's a good growth moment. And then old Peeta just has to ruin everything by saying, oh, I love her. Is it strategy? Is it just the way he is? Adrian, where do you want to go from here?
Well, let's start there with Peeta, because Peeta lays the YA romance bombshell in the last few words of this section.
I wrote indicative of YA lit.
But 20 pages before that, 15 pages before that, he wants to be trained separately from her. So this is setting us up to believe that it's just strategy.
Okay.
But I think that Peeta is probably a genuine character because those are the turns that Peeta has made.
Okay.
And what this probably is, him being asked to be trained separately, is so that he does not operate to the detriment of Katniss. I think that's what's going to come out. In the heat of the battle or something, it'll come out. You wanted to be trained separately because you were so good. I didn't want to hold you back or something like that.
Well, we do have to take into account that good old Haymitch has been making it a point. He's like, hey, when you guys are seen in public, you're best of friends.
Yeah.
Everybody loves you two, so make it that your thing. Because even Haymitch has had a little bit of character growth here. We don't see him drinking as much. We see him starting to strategize and starting to show his chops. So there's a little bit of excitement building around this, which isn't bad on Suzanne Collins' part, as we move towards the big culminating chapter, the part of the games themselves.
Yeah. Haymitch, so Haymitch could be a very interesting character. Unfortunately, he's a little too far out of the fold right now, and I think that's going to remain the way, right? Because they're right at being thrown into the games, and I don't believe, I don't know how the Hunger Games work, but I'm assuming you're just thrown into a field of play. And you don't have a break, you don't have coaching, you don't have...
Essentially, yes.
Okay,
but on the outside of the field of play, we still have Haymitch working his magic, trying to get those sponsors.
Okay, so I didn't know... How are we going to see that, though? Everything so far has been first person through Katniss.
Just something we to bring up.
Okay.
It's going to be happening in the background here. We also get a wonderful little moment here, just bringing up some decent moments from Suzanne Collins, where Peeta's mother comes to visit him. And basically, says, well, maybe District 12 will finally have a champion. Katniss even mentioned, he's like, she was encouraging you. He's like, no, she's talking about you. Yeah. She knows I'm going to die. Which, damn, coming from your own mother, that's not bad. That's intense stuff. So I think there's some good stuff going on here for sure. Don't worry, it's all going to be ruined at the end of the book, but it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. I do. So the ever-growing character of Katniss is one that is more compelling than many of the characters that I've seen in YA.
Okay.
How you've both successfully struggled. Oh, this is on page 74. How you've both successfully struggled to overcome the barbarism of your district. Barbarism? That's ironic, coming from a woman helping us prepare for slaughter. And what's she basing our success on? Our table manners? So this tells us about Katniss, correct? This also tells us about the world in which we are living at the time. But it is something to think about as well. How do we measure barbarity?
Okay.
Barbarism?
Barbarism.
How do we measure that?
Okay, it's a good question. Because this is set in a American dystopian future. However, the idea of humans killing each other for sport has been around since, humans have been around. This is a gladiatorial almost.
Yeah, I mean, and when you think of the ancient world and you think of the height of civilization, it's Rome.
Absolutely.
Right? Rome had this.
Yes, they did. I mean, obviously it wasn't children, but I mean, not necessarily.
I guarantee you they weren't excluded.
And, people didn't just sign up to be gladiators. No,
Right.
you're drafted. You're coming right on in.
You're a prisoner of war.
So basically, this is just a repeat of human history. So is it barbarism, or is this just human nature at its finest? Because as we see, as terrible as this is, as depressing as this is, that we're sending our children to slaughter, basically, for our entertainment, that little quip where, she gets an 11 out of 12, that's great for betting. No, people are still enjoying this. It's fine.
Yeah, so this also... Katniss has been treated very well since coming to the games, right?
Yes.
She's got that 11, which helps her case. She's been dressed well, which helps her case.
Everything's
She's
going
got
well
all this
for her.
coaching, which helps her case. This is one... So, literature breaks down barriers. That is the great lure of literature, is to understand and to break down barriers and to come away more human. And Katniss in this book, very oppressed, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Now, if you were from District 1 and you were looking at this, you would say she's got all of the trappings that my boy has that's been sent to these games.
Okay.
She's not being oppressed, right? But is she?
That's a good question.
She doesn't have 18 years of good feeding behind her.
True.
She's being treated on a level playing field at this moment, but hasn't for her entire life. So there are all these things that set her up as a failure, but not for failure, which is one of the dividing lines between a form of oppression and a non-form of oppression, between a form of oppression and being seen as oppression from the outside.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
It does. Moving back a little bit, talking again about barbarism here. I'm trying to find the exact word for it because I didn't write it down. Effie brings up the barbarism, like, oh, your district is so barbaric.
Yeah.
Effie comes from a district where it is completely normal and acceptable that if you do wrong, we're going to cut out your tongue and enslave you.
Avox.
Avox.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, whose barbarity are you judging?
True.
Right.
True.
So
it seems like we both have some issues going on here.
That's what's going on. That's one of the main questions with this subject matter. Whose barbarity are you judging? Because everyone has some.
And I think the idea of the Avox is very cleverly slipped in here because we're obviously focusing on Katniss. We're obviously focusing on the games. But this little idea of an Avox where this person was clearly running from the government, running from something, it was caught, her tongue was cut out, now she's enslaved in the capital. It's there, but you don't really give it a lot of thought. But when you sit and think about it, that's a whole story in its own. There's a lot going on there. Something awry.
Something's afoot.
Something's afoot.
So on top of that, District 1. Where's District 1?
West. Over the mountains.
District 12. Where's District 12?
East. Appalachia.
So this person made it from District 1 all the way to District 12 before she was caught.
Hoofing it.
and happen to be the same individual that is servicing Katniss in these games, how realistic is that?
Unrealistic.
Very unrealistic. We don't question it, do we? Did you ever
Fair.
question it?
I did not question it until you brought it up. That's a big difference between Harry Potter and the Hunger Games. Is what is unrealistic in here is not questioned. What's unrealistic in Harry Potter is blatant.
Right. So, well, and it also goes back to, so if you're suspending disbelief, you understand that the only reason that's in there, if you're suspending disbelief entirely, you understand that, okay, this is what happened.
Okay.
If you're suspending disbelief enough to get into the story, you understand, okay, this is to illustrate the world. Even if you are not suspending your disbelief, even if you refuse to suspend disbelief, there's a percentage chance that happened, right? How many Avoxes could there be, really? How many people really try to run away from District 1 to get to District 12, really?
Okay.
How many people would really make it that far? So if anyone ever did, and they were seen by someone who was scrounging around in the woods, it would probably have been this one person.
Well, let's push it a little bit further then. This Avox traveled from East Coast to West Coast. West Coast to East Coast, excuse me. This Avox, really her last moments of freedom were witnessed by Katniss. Is she there because she's supposed to be now?
Yeah, so there's definitely an element of that there. You have to question that. Because, and this is why I make the argument that this is a well-written series, even though we're only 9 chapters in, is that when something is completely disbelievable, you have to wonder if there's a motivation behind it, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, what are we doing here?
While we're focused on all the pageantry and we're getting excited for the games, which is obviously going to be the big climactic part of this series, we have gotten to this point of forgetting that basically this series is about an oppressive government.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really started thinking about in this section of the reading, this is the United States.
Correct.
Was the United States. It is now Panama?
Panama!
Panama Canal? Pan Am. Incredibly wealthy in at least District 1, right? They've got elevators made of crystal.
They have spaceships that'll come by and spear you.
Basically UFOs, right?
Yeah.
Like it looks like a UFO, in my mind anyway. I'm not sure how it's supposed to look, but no one else is invading.
Fair statement.
Which leads to one of 2 trains of thought. 1, the rest of the world is just as screwed. Or 2, and this is the one that I really started thinking about this part of the read-through, Vladimir Putin. What are some of the things you know about Vladimir Putin?
He's Russian.
And he's usurped essentially all of the wealth in the entire country, right? But there's a lot of wealth there. Okay. He lives lavishly.
He does.
He has anything anyone could ever want by all accounts.
Okay.
He has everything.
If he wants to go hunt bears topless, he can.
And when he wants more, he just takes it, right? A lot of stuff there to be had. Who's invading Russia?
Ain't nobody doing that.
Why?
Don't want none of that.
Nobody wants it.
Okay.
Not even, so you're not even really afraid Russia's going to nuke you at this point. I don't think they have. I don't know if they are what they were, right? No one's afraid of Russia necessarily.
But
nobody wants it.
Okay.
Is this the United States at that Russia point where nobody wants it?
Interesting.
Nobody,
it's a good point to
wants
bring up, and that's honestly one I have not thought about. I'm not sure if a lot of people have thought about. Because this is a dystopian United States, which, you know, the dystopian theme, again, very YA. The romance between Peeta and Katniss that is blooming, very YA. But when you look past this ain't bad, honestly. There's a lot of stuff going on.
No, and I think there's going to be very bad things coming up.
Okay.
So this whole deal with Rue.
Thank you. That was one of my bring up to Adrian, how we feel about Rue.
Rue getting the 7. Rue being so emblematic of the younger sister. Rue's dead. Rue's dead already.
Okay.
Rue's a dead man walking.
It's the theory in literature that if there's a dog in the story, the dog's there to die because you're going to feel bad.
Have you been reading your How to Read Literature Like a Professor book?
You know it.
So yeah, it's exactly that. So Unfortunately, we see that coming.
Okay.
If you're reading with a critical eye, like if you're reading to go with the story, you might not see that coming. I don't get the same feeling about either Katniss or Peeta. It's fairly obvious that Katniss doesn't die. We're narrated from her perspective.
Okay.
There's all sorts of tricks you can pull at the end there, but you don't feel that coming.
Okay. So Rue, 70 pounds, 13 years old, reminds Katniss of her younger sister, got a 7. What did Peeta get, like a 9?
Something like that.
Something like that for like throwing things because he can pick stuff up. He's a big, strong man. Rue did something. Rue didn't get a 1.
Right.
Rue proved something. So in this little 13-year-old, 70-pound character, there's some danger in there. There's some fight. So it's interesting. It's intriguing to you, and it kind of draws you in a little bit. That's why I wanted to bring up the idea of, like, what does Adrian think about Rue?
If she chews someone's face off, this is my favorite book.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like, if that's what ends up happening, this is my favorite book. It is, like I say, a cheap trick to have Rue in there because you've got a younger sister, right?
I do.
Automatically tugs at your heartstrings, doesn't it?
It does.
You don't get a say in the matter. It's a cheap trick.
It is.
But at the same time, I mean, it's a cheap trick that's effective.
It is effective.
You don't get to look past that one.
And we get a little glimpse at the other combatant from District 11, who is the polar opposite. This is Jim, the big, strong, silent type, standing in the corner.
Did you have more to go on that?
No, I'm just bringing up some different characters that we're being introduced to throughout time. And I do think it's interesting in the interview as well, because one thing Suzanne Collins does well, and Haymitch brings it up very blatantly, don't give it all away. Don't let him know what you got. Suzanne Collins is doing the same thing here. Rue, the only thing we get, because it's from Katniss's perspective, is, oh, you got a 7. How'd you do that? You're so tiny. I'm hard to find. I'm very, very sneaky, sir.
Yeah.
Very sneaky.
One might call this meta, right?
There's a lot of good stuff going on here.
I would like to touch on that other combatant from District 11.
Okay.
Since you've already raised Harry Potter, we might as well go down the racism track.
Here we go.
The boy tribute from District 11, Thresh, has the same dark skin as Rue, but the resemblance stops there. He's one of the giants, probably 6.5 feet tall and built like an ox. But I noticed he rejected the invitations from the career tributes to join their crowd. Instead, he's been very solitary, speaking to no one, showing little interest in training. Even so, he scored a 10, and it's not hard to imagine he impressed the game makers. He ignores Caesar's attempts at banter and answers with a yes or no, or just remains silent. Are we playing with fire with that? Because that sounds a lot like the big, dumb, black athlete stereotype.
Okay.
That sounds a lot like the big, dumb, built like an ox slave stereotype.
Okay.
Am I wrong here? Am I going too far with that?
Perhaps not. And like, obviously, if that was your interpretation of the reading, and then therefore it's valid. That's the way this works.
Well,
but that idea, that racist connotation you got here, this idea, hang on to it.
Hang on to it.
Oh, it's coming back in a bad way.
Well, and my thing is, if this character were any other race, any other color than black, I don't think that's in there like that, right?
Okay.
He's just a big, dumb, strong guy. But when you make him a black character, when you make him the only black character, and when you put him in this situation that he is being exposed as big, dumb, and strong, and we even use the phrase built like an ox.
Yeah.
What are ox?
Let's just get into this argument right now. So, United States again, we have Appalachia, right?
Yeah.
That's District 12. If you move west of Appalachia, where are you getting?
You're in the South.
You're in
right?
the South. You're in the agrarian South. Guess what District 11's big contribution to society is?
The farmers?
They're the farmers.
Yeah. Yeah, and you sort of... And this is one of the things where it's like, this isn't done so blatantly as like Harry Potter, but this is one of the things where when you're talking about it, it's almost like, are you sure or are you the racist one? Like it's written so subtly and slipped in there in such fashion that it's like, oh no, you're the racist one for bringing it up. I didn't put that in there, you know?
Okay.
But these things are, if you're thinking about this in a logistical fashion, these are points that are raised. These are things that
have to be addressed for interpretation.
It's not my stereotype of the big dumb slave. That's not my stereotype. That's through literature. That's through societies. That's there. It's unfortunate. It's awful. It's there. Why do we need it in this book?
Okay.
Right. And I don't know. Like I've got no reason to think that it was put in there intentionally. But this is the argument that we make so often with literature. For me to see something in a text is not to say that the author put it in there intentionally. It's also not to say it isn't there.
Okay.
Right?
It's a valid argument. I'm not going to fault you on it. I would like to revisit this later when we get to know these characters a little more, and we get to know the districts a little more as well. And we'll see where that goes. So,
while we're on the subject of the little, we just got away from the little sister character, right? We just got away from the faux sister of Rue. We just got away from that. On page 75, my quarters are larger than our entire house back home. They are plush, like the train car, but have so many automatic gadgets that I'm sure I won't have time to press all the buttons. The shower alone has a panel with more than 100 options you can choose, regulating water temperature, pressure, soaps, shampoos, scents, oils, and massaging sponges. When you step out onto the mat, heaters come on that blow dry your body. Instead of struggling with the knots in my wet hair, I merely place my hand on a box that sends a current through my scalp, untangling, parting, and drying my hair drying my hair almost instantly. It floats down around my shoulders in a glossy curtain. This would be a great time to reflect on the sister and mother characters and feel guilty.
Okay.
But we never get it.
Okay.
This
missed opportunity.
This would be a great time to add that humanity there. Have you ever been in that situation where like I've been in hotels and been like, man, it's nice here. My family doesn't live here. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
Like one of those situations.
No, I'm the guy who's sitting in the jacuzzi in my private hotel room, chain smoking. I'm like, I'm gonna send a picture to my sister, be like, you ain't got this. This is mine.
Casino gave it to me.
It cost me $4,000, but they're going to send me breakfast in the morning. Okay. Yeah, that would have been a good moment for humanity. It is definitely implied that, it's not implied, it's in the text, they had to struggle for everything they had.
Yeah.
It would be implied that even simple things like water were hard to come by at some point.
Hot water,
impossibility. And let me tell you, you're right there. It would have been a great moment for that. A very humanizing moment for Katniss. Just knock her down a peg.
Yeah.
Okay.
We talked a little bit, I think, before we turned on the camera about bad writing.
Yes.
And how the writing in this section is not quite as crisp as the first 5 chapters. On page 77, we get the phrase gorgeous looking. I want you to close your eyes. And when you hear the word gorgeous, what do you think?
Me.
Right, no, but seriously.
I don't know, gorgeous.
It's appearance. It's an appearance word.
Appearance.
It's like basically that's like saying good looking.
Yeah.
That's like saying great smelling.
It's unnecessary.
Yeah, ATM machine.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Gorgeous looking. Why are you saying gorgeous looking? It doesn't make any sense. On page where are we at? Quote one on page 100. Don't let's pretend when there's no one around. Don't let's pretend when there's no one around.
It's just uncomfortable to say out loud.
People say it all the time. People phrase those things like that all the time.
Don't let's pretend. Yeah, but in text, it's.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So that's one of those things that people say all the time. And when you can translate it to writing, if you can translate, like Chuck Palahniuk's really good at this.
Okay.
Chuck Palahniuk is really good at taking the way people actually talk, putting it in print, and you understand the way it's flowing.
As much as I don't like him, Mark Twain was famed for that.
Exactly. This doesn't work.
Okay.
Don't let's pretend there's no one. Yeah, that doesn't work. I've got so much more to talk about.
I don't.
Really?
That's it. I kind of expected you were going to run with an hour for this one, so I'm like, I'll just let him have it, whatever.
Yeah, I got so much more to talk about.
I brought up my important things. I'm like, you should steer him this direction, get his opinions. People are going to want to know that, and I'm out.
Just the perfect touch of rebellion. You talked about this a little bit earlier. Just the perfect touch of rebellion, says Hamish. Very nice. Rebellion? I have to think about that one for a moment. And this is in reference to them holding hands.
Yeah, we're planting the seeds.
Yeah, it's going to play into the ending. There's going to be something there, which is as unfortunate as it is to be able to see it. That's good writing, right?
It is.
When your ending is the culmination of the book.
The seeds are being planted early. And again, I will make this argument. I think this could have been such a good book, but we had to go the serious route. We wanted the money. And like you were mentioning earlier, it feels like it was a good book that was just kind of watered down because we had to get it to the length of being YA.
Right. And again, I don't know the ending to this book, so I'm excited to see why you're saying this. So we had some bad writing, but we've got some good ambiguity on page 84, or another hint of bad writing. But I think it's the good type of ambiguity. This is an exchange between Peeta and Katniss as they talk about Gale. Yes, do you know him? I ask. Not really. I hear the girls talk about him a lot. I thought he was your cousin or something. You favor each other, he says. No, we're not related, I say. Peeta nods, unreadable. Did you catch it? Do you favor him? Do you favor each other? No, we're not related. There's good ambiguity there.
Okay.
Is the no answering, do you favor each other, which is the last question?
Or are they answering, no, we're not related?
Right. So there's good ambiguity there, which leaves you to question things as the reader.
Which is always a good thing. Always a good thing to be questioning the text.
Going forward from there, we get the little hint of Peeta as the artist.
Okay.
He decorates the cakes and takes great pride in it. This is an impoverished type of art. This is a craft type of art, right? Like, you're not having free reign over creativity, but
somebody's still got to decorate the cakes.
And someone's taking pride in it. So there's something to be said for that. There's something of an
There's also little bits, as they are going through the different trainers, they go over to the less populated sections. You know, we're going to go learn how to tie knots. And the trainer just perks right up. Oh my God, somebody wants to know about my craft. So we are seeing the pride in the craft being displayed there, even the crafts that are sometimes overlooked.
Yeah. And there's a small, so we've got some gender flipping here, right? You've got Peeta, who makes cakes, who's the artist, who's decorating cakes, who takes great pride.
Quiet, sensitive, caring.
Quiet, sensitive, caring, but charismatic as well, right? People automatically like Peeta, right? Then you've got Katniss, who's very direct, very to the point. She's the killer, right? She says, I don't care about any of this shit, give me a bow, right? Traditionally a masculine type of thing. She's also funny in a masculine type of way.
Okay.
It is a...
What's the best thing about District 1? The stew.
Yeah. How often is it a woman that makes that joke?
Okay.
It seems funny and original because it's a woman that makes that joke. That joke's, I mean, been done 100 times on King of Queens, on King of the Hill, on... I don't know why I'm saying all the kings, but you know what I'm saying, right? The chubby guy who's the funny guy has made that joke throughout history. What's the best thing about it? Oh, well, I really like pizza. You know? She's also, her humor is very understated and on the sleeve honest, right?
Okay. But while we still have that, we still have them also falling into the standard stereotypical tropes. Peeta's the big, strong man. He's really good at moving and carrying things. He's built strong. He has strength behind him, although it's not really, being utilized. He's just naturally strong.
He's naturally strong, but we have to be reminded of it.
We do have to be reminded of it. And we also have to be reminded of the fact that deep down, Katniss is caring. Katniss is compassionate. She's doing this for her family. She's doing this in place of her sister. So deep down, she obviously is very caring and obviously very sensitive. Things that are usually thrown into a feminine light. as compared to the stereotypes that we're getting.
Well, I don't know that that's fair.
You don't think so?
I don't think that's... You're saying that fathers are uncaring.
Oh, I'm not saying that directly,
Because
but
she's basically been the father of her family.
Okay.
Right? So that's sort of where her end of the gender bending comes from.
Okay.
The fact that dad died and she had to pick up from there.
Okay.
So it's very much in the story. It's rooted in the story.
It is.
I'm not sure at this point where PETA's sort of gender bending into the things come from, except for the fact that line of work, right? Bakery. Women are the bakers, women are the cookers, women in the kitchen, right? There's that end of things, and that's where PETA comes from. So giving Suzanne Collins credit, she's playing with these things right in front of your face, and you're just not...
Just dangling them in front of you.
And
Okay.
you're not being slapped in the face with them.
All right.
Which leads to sort of this quote from PETA, where he says, "You have no idea what effect you'll have." Remember that?
I do.
What was that about? What effect is she going to have?
Like, are we...
When she's talking about winning sponsors.
What effect is she going to have?
Yeah. What is the effect that he's talking about?
He's talking about her, like, her strength, and, like, no?
He's talking about her sex appeal.
Okay.
That
is... Okay, yeah.
It has nothing to do with her ability to kill that she'll get sponsors. It's her ability to kill that she'll get patrons, right? It's her ability to kill that she'll have people betting on her. But it's her sex appeal that sponsors are going to go... Like, Colgate doesn't want the big, dumb athlete that's ugly sponsoring them. They want supermodel who was
Yeah, I'm not going to be on
gymnast.
Colgate anytime soon.
Nothing to do with soap either. Like, I hate to break it to
That's
you.
fair.
Not that you smell,
I really should...
but you look like you would.
Dove for men.
I've seen it before.
Irish Spring soap.
But so PETA recognizes that sexual attraction advantage that Katniss has. Katniss has never noticed it about PETA.
Okay.
Also, PETA notices the sexual advantage that Katniss has. Katniss has never noticed it about Katniss.
This is true.
Right.
She's actually, through most of this series, doubted it the entire time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not as attractive as the girls from District 1. I'm not made for this. So she has those self-doubts, whereas they are using PETA's self-doubts as an advantage. That self-deprecating humor that Haymitch was bringing up. So again, a lot of good stuff going on here.
Yeah.
A lot of good character stuff, too. It's very rare, especially not bashing the YA series, but in a YA series, character development and growth is a rare thing. And, like, this is rampant in here. Rampant.
Yeah, well, growth and realization. So we have also these characters realizing things about themselves, which is it's not only is it's hard to pull off, right? On page 101, though, back in the center of the gymnasium, I take my initial position and skewer the dummy right through the heart. Then I sever the rope that holds the sandbag for boxing, and the bag splits open as it slams to the ground. Without pausing, I shoulder roll forward, come up on one knee, and send an arrow into one of the hanging lights above the gymnasium floor. A shower of sparks bursts from the fixture. Is she Katniss Everdeen, or is she goddamn John Rambo?
John Wick.
Yeah,
Got that skill to her. And here's the thing. You ever shot a bow and arrow?
No, but I know it's not easy.
You give me somebody who can hit a rope from a distance with a bow and arrow.
While moving?
That's all you need. You don't have to shoot at the crowd at that point. You get that 11. So
yeah, it's one of these things that, to me, that's more unrealistic than the Avox.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Than the one in
it's
the
very
middle.
Hollywood. That was written for movie.
And also, on the very next page, without thinking, I pull an arrow from my... Ooh, I don't know that I marked this quite well enough. Oh, yeah, no, I did. Without thinking, I pull an arrow from my quiver and send it straight through the game maker's table. I hear shouts of alarm as people stumble backwards. The arrow skewers the apple in the pig's mouth as it pins it to the wall behind it. Everyone stares at me in disbelief. Thank you for your consideration, I say. And then I give a slight bow and walk straight towards the exit without being dismissed. So she's another John. She's John Wayne here. And then we go straight forward.
Does she walk out like John Wayne? Does she live out?
Circle
Thank
the
you for
wagons.
your consideration.
I'm leaving now. I'm going to take a step, followed by another step. Narrates it the whole way. But on the kissing page, as I stride toward the elevator, I fling my bow to one side and my quiver to the other. I brush past the gaping Avoxes who guard the elevators and hit the 12 button with my fist. And then straight to the next paragraph begins with, now I've done it. Now I've ruined everything. You've almost got to make up your mind, is she a hard ass or not?
Okay.
Right? Like, I understand that this is a very emotion-filled situation, but the person who's going to send an arrow into the wall between a group of people and then walk off, I have to doubt is the same individual who's going to go, that's it. I've ruined everything. Right? It's a very, very hard turn.
I think the way it's being played off, whether it's done well or not, is Katniss is obviously a badass here. She is our badass in the story, but she doesn't realize that about herself just yet. And in order to survive this, she has to acknowledge and realize that.
I think you have to acknowledge and realize that a great deal more than you're willing to get put on if you're going to walk away from a group of people who has the right to kill you.
Here's the thing. This is the same character who 20 pages earlier, when we're talking about bow skills, she's like, well, I guess I'm okay at it. I'm whatever. And then we're splitting ropes. We're shooting apples in pigs' mouths in between people. Really? Have we just not realized we're good at this?
Yeah, I think... This is another one of the, and I hate to speculate, but this is another one of the areas in this text where I have to believe some of these words were thrown in to bulk the book up.
Okay.
Like, I have to believe that this was, what did we say last time, 330? 370. I have to believe that at one point this was a 295-page book. And they were like, look.
Spice it up.
Yeah. Put something else in here. Because, I mean, page 105, which is 2 pages after that, I take tiny spoonfuls of fish soup. The saltiness reminds me of my tears. Right?
That's good writing.
That's not great.
Are you sure?
That's not great. That is black box theater level of pretension, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to, it's not bad. The story's not bad. The characters aren't bad. The writing's not bad. But there are some points where all of these things are egregiously bad.
Okay.
Right? So the characters are great, right? I would say the characters in this story are really, really good. Except for the moments where someone becomes John Wick, John Rambo, or John Wayne.
Okay. And we're going to be getting a lot more of that, let's be honest. We're throwing them into the game.
Sure. The story is fantastic. Mind-boggling, right? But you don't question it, except for the egregious part where the Avox happens to be the same one.
Okay.
The writing is really good, on the precipice of great at times.
Okay.
Until fish soup reminds you of your tears.
Fish tear soup.
Yeah.
So I want to bring this up here because we have been working our way through Harry Potter. We put that to rest. Great series. We talked a lot about J.K. Rowling's inability to write action.
Yes.
She just kind of glosses over it. Everything happens in the background. On the other hand here, a good chunk of this novel, what are we looking at here? Page 133 to 244 is just the games. It's just the action.
Really?
Yeah. So we are going to be putting Suzanne Collins' writing to the test here to see if she could hold your attention, make it realistic, and paint the picture of what's happening throughout here. So I'm really interested to get your take on how that goes, to be honest. Sure. Just as a comparison of two YA authors put together, the difference.
And this will be trying because I'm not a thriller reader. Okay. You know, it'd be interesting to get the opinion of someone who reads thrillers as well. But let's go back to character a little bit. Page 106 to 107. What about my and this is after the she shot at the game makers. What about my family, I say? Will they punish them? Don't think so. Wouldn't make much sense. See, they'd have to reveal what happened at the training center for it to have any worthwhile effect on the population. People would need to know what you did, but they can't since it's secret, so it'd be a waste of effort, says Haymitch. More likely they'll make your life a living hell in the arena. Well, they've already promised to do that anyway, says Peeta. Very true, says Haymitch, and I realize the impossible has happened. They have actually cheered me up. Haymitch picks up a pork chop with his fingers, which makes Effie frown, and he dunks it in his wine. He rips off a chunk of meat and starts to chuckle. What were their faces like?
Okay.
That is a great turn in Haymitch. Haymitch goes from, holy shit, this happened, to, I mean, don't worry too much about it. You're going to die anyway. This is just going to expedite the process. All the way to, yeah, what do they look like?
Okay.
And you see it, you understand it, and you believe it. That does not seem out of character, does it?
It does not seem out of character. And there are some weird things going on as well that, like, until you read it out loud, like, I didn't even, like, connect it. He took his pork chop and dipped it in his wine. When I read through that, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But then once you say it, I'm like, I never
You
seen
haven't noticed
nobody
that?
do that.
These people are dipping weird stuff in all sorts of things. Pete is a big fan of dipping his bread in his hot chocolate.
Okay, well, that is it.
That's
I
not
can
normal.
believe that. I can believe that.
It's not normal.
I can believe it.
And Katniss dipped something in mashed potatoes, but I can't remember what it was.
I'm a dipper. I dip food into food, but, like, I've never thought pork chops and wine. I know what I'm doing after we're done filming. It's pork chop night.
I've never thought about this. I have now.
It's fair. It's fair. I feel like I've got the Haymitch look going right now, so it's fine.
121, 122. You mentioned something like this earlier, but my spirit. This is a new thought. I'm not sure exactly what it means, but it suggests I'm a fighter. In a sort of brave way, it's not as if I'm never friendly. Okay, maybe I don't go around loving everybody I meet. Maybe my smiles are hard to come by. But I do care for some people. I am Dark Lord.
I am Dark Lord. Okay.
Well, that's really curmudgeonly part of that. It's not as if I'm never friendly. Okay, maybe I don't go around loving everybody.
So, not a fan of Colin's inner dialogue writing. It's a little, but okay.
Yeah, so it's definitely clunky at times, but
It is.
I would never say that it's
It's a
taking
hard thing
away
to do.
from the story.
Yeah, it is a hard thing to do, and it doesn't take away from the story, but it doesn't add anything, and it's not necessary.
Yeah. On the next page, Caesar Flickerman, the man who has hosted the interviews for more than 40 years, bounces onto the stage. It's a little scary because his appearance has been virtually unchanging during all that time. Regis Philbin.
Plastic surgery.
Yeah, Regis Philbin. This is written in 2008. That was the 75th year, I think, that Regis Philbin had done the New Year's Eve. There's one more thing I think to talk about. Oh, this novel has great pace.
Okay.
So one of the things that we've done on this series for 3 years is read Harry Potter.
Okay.
There's no pacing in that novel. Nothing happens, nothing happens, nothing happens, everything happened and no one saw it, nothing happens, nothing happens, nothing happens, everything happens and no one was there, nothing happens, nothing happens. Every chapter of this moves the story along.
It does. And what we are 133 pages into this novel right now. It's been a couple days.
Yeah, it's been a couple days, but in those days, we have established a world, we have established characters, we have established families, we've been ripped from that world, put into a new world, learned the new world, we know the word Avox now.
Okay.
I still can't tell you what magical people are called in Harry Potter 3 years later. Magicians? Don't remember. Doesn't matter. We've learned little pieces of the games. We've learned the inner workings of the games.
So one thing about the Hunger Games, when I first read this, I read this at work, standing at my desk, ignoring customers. That's how I read this book. I don't know if I can justify my argument here, but this is a very fluid read. I can pick this book up, and I will enjoy it from where I start to where I stop. And it just flows right along. I don't have to take a break, sit it down, and be like, what the hell is going on? I don't have to sit it down and just be pissed off at J.K. Rowling. It's a very fluid read, which is a great thing. Not only for a YA audience, who that is necessary for, because you have to be captivating, you have to keep their attention the entire time.
For whom that is necessary.
It's good for any reader.
Yeah.
Jackass. Anyway, got anything else to say about Hunger Games as we're on to our second hour of Hunger Games video?
Well, I would like to get your opinion on this. There is A lot. So you have sort of a negative feeling towards this book.
Yes.
That is not uncommon.
Okay.
From where does that spring? You've mentioned the ending, and obviously don't spoil it. But you've mentioned the ending. Is that the? Did you enjoy it until the ending?
Yes, honestly.
Okay. So it's the ending that ruined it for you. I'm going to assume that it's the ending that ruins it for a lot of people.
Again, justify the best I can. I enjoyed this read. I genuinely would say this is a good novel. Up until either Suzanne Collins or an editor made the decision to make this, instead of a standalone novel that would have been damn good, make it into a series. They went the money route. They said, how many more books can we stretch out of this? We've got movies to make. That's what ruined this series.
So barring that, imagine this book ended the exact way that you wanted it. What would your opinion of the book be?
Oh, it's a damn good book.
Is it?
Yes. Absolutely. It's simple. It is very simple. It is a simple book, simple read. But we've argued here for almost an hour now. It is complex as well. There's a lot going on. You've got great development. You have, it's entertaining. It's interesting. We're going to see how this next part of the book holds up for you because it's action-based. And we're going to be seeing a lot of action. But I think she does it well. And I think the next part is good as well. And some great things happen in here. Some things that you aren't expecting that have already been embedded into this come back.
I guess what I'm getting at is this is known as a movie now, obviously, right? Like this is, oh, I love the Hunger Games. You've seen the movies. No. I mean the books. What? So this is a movie, not a book. That's what it's known as. That is the cultural phenomenon of the Hunger Games, is as a movie. What I wonder is, I've never heard the Hunger Games being taught in a YA literature class, in a high school English class, in a middle school class, maybe a little adult for middle school readers, obviously. But you can stretch the boundaries there. Definitely, I don't know that many parents would object to their child reading the novelization of a movie they saw, right? Although that's not what it is. I want to know, why is the cultural phenomenon around this simply about the movies and not the books? And why have other YA novels been adopted into classrooms instead of this? So, for example, we read some Neil Shusterman. Shusterman makes his way into high school classrooms, right?
He does.
Shusterman makes his way into college-level classes about young adult literature.
Okay. This one doesn't get picked up as much.
To my experience, to my knowledge, I've never heard of it.
Okay.
Right?
I don't know if I can argue it again. I will say it's going to come down to the ending. I genuinely think.
But does the ending... So the way you're explaining it, I'm imagining the ending is softer than one would like.
Suzanne Collins wrote 350 pages of this book. This last portion right here came from her editor saying, you know what? They're already making a movie. Wouldn't you like to have 3 more movies? Don't you like money, Suzanne Collins?
Right.
And she took a good book and she killed it.
Okay, so you're not arguing the point that I'm asking you your argument for. You're arguing the same point you were arguing from the beginning. So I'm assuming, okay, so yes or no, the ending is softer than you would like.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's how you get a series out of it, right?
Fair.
That a softer ending is not what's going to keep it out of a high school classroom or especially not a college class about YA literature, because at that point it becomes a huge talking point that this is what happens in YA versus literature.
Okay. I don't know if I have a good answer. I would assume, given my knowledge of high school literature and how that works, this book wouldn't be welcomed with open arms because we're killing children. I mean, Harry Potter isn't welcomed in open arms in the Midwest because it's witchcraft. So there's some simple difficulties there.
Right, but that book, The Giver, isn't there killing in The Giver?
Yes. It is considered controversial, though, and so a lot of high schools have banned The Giver because of that. And I guarantee it's the same issue with this here. But in The Giver, it's a little different. It's literary in The Giver. This is action-based. This is straight up murdering kids.
Okay.
If that makes sense. It's very Hollywood.
Okay.
Where the giver is more subtle, it's more literary, and therefore I think you can justify it a little better. This, I have to send a form home and be like, so we're reading The Hunger Games. This is about 24 kids who get together in a field and slaughter each other. It's
First
a hard
off,
sell.
You don't write that as the letter.
It's a hard sell. Yeah. It's a hard sell. I don't know. I don't have a good answer. Maybe we'll get there. Maybe we'll.
If you would like me to look at the action and how that works, I'm requesting that you take a look at why isn't this in classrooms.
Okay, I could probably
just keep
do
it in the
that.
back of your mind.
Yeah.
You know.
I've got some connections in the high school literature world. We'll see what I can do.
Okay.
You want to finish this?
So this has been our second hour of the Hunger Games discussion, which Dalton is shaking his head about for some reason. I'm just excited to have something that's worth reading as opposed to Harry Potter for 3 years. But if you enjoy this sort of thing, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you follow us on other forms of social media. We are at Strip Coverlet on Instagram, at Strip Cover on Twitter. And if you would like to help us create more content here on Strip Coverlet, there's a link as always to our Patreon to be found in the description below. And we hope to see you for the next installment of Read Along for the Hunger Games.